I never believed in myself. I always believed that I was brain damaged because that's what they told me I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to figure out that I wasn't. And I wasn't what they told me I was.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope more people realize is you're not who other people think you are or say you are. You're yourself, and we tend to live within like the realm of what other people want us to do.
Absolutely.
And it's important to find yourself and then live the life that you want, not the life that other people want. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Abilities Podcast. I am your host, Nick Uhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. This episode of the Infinite Abilities Podcast is brought to you by the one and only Infinite Toolbox, where just like all other toolboxes, we will get the job done, guaranteed. Whether you're an entrepreneur looking to save time, boost revenue, or automate your processes, Infinite Toolbox has got you covered. With powerful tools designed to drive leads, expand your reach, and gain your industry secrets, we help you work smarter, not harder. Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Visit us at infinitetoolbox.com. That's infinitetoolbox.com, and discover how infinite your potential really is. All right, everyone, I'm excited for this episode. I have Ellen Busch with me, and I can't wait for her to tell you about what she does and her story. So, Ellen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. And Nick, it's wonderful to be here on your podcast, so thank you.
Of course.
So I'm an author. I wrote Disempowered, but the DIS is crossed out. And
I like that.
Yeah, my friend came up with the title. So when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I was diagnosed as dyslexic.
Okay.
And when I went through the school system, despite living in a affluent community, a New York City suburb, I was written off by the education system.
Mm-hmm.
And they treated me like a second-class citizen. My parents were sat down in a parent-teacher conference, and they were told that they should focus on finding me a husband because he would take care of me, because I was not going to go to college and I would not be contributing to society other than as a wife and a mother.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I had scored very high on the WIS test, specifically in logic and abstract reasoning. But they just ignored that. They focused on my struggle in learning to read and not what I could do.
Mm-hmm.
But I went on, and despite everything they tried to do, and, by suppressing me, I went on to college, went on and got a master's degree. And now I've written a book. So I beat them all by their stickers. Thank you.
Yeah.
But, through that experience, I was traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
My self-esteem was destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to work through that. Unfortunately, that made me very vulnerable to predatory personalities, bullies, narcissists. I ended up in an abusive marriage. Wow. Narcissists are looking for low self-esteem targets.
Yep.
And had to escape from that marriage, literally escape.
Mm-hmm.
Got out, got to work, focused on healing and personal growth. I worked with coaches and therapists.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned how to completely rebuild and recreate my life, the life that I wanted.
Yep.
So that's the short.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And, I kind of relate to you because, like, the school system, I have cerebral palsy. So they wanted to put me in special ed classes and all that. But that's not what I needed. Like, it's only, my disability is only physical. It's not mental.
Right.
So for me, thankfully my parents fought and got me into mainstream classes, and I went through school. I graduated with a 3.5 grade point average.
Wow.
So like I did very well in school. But if my parents would have just listened to the school system, who knows where I would be now?
Yeah.
So I definitely had to fight a lot of those types of challenges my whole life. But like you, that turned me into a stronger person, because like
Yes.
you, I took it as, oh, you don't think I can?
Right.
let's see,
Right. Right. Watch me.
So yeah, so it kind of it pushed me to do better with everything that I do.
Right.
So, and I feel like you're the exact same way.
Absolutely, 100%. I was also fortunate to have amazing parents who also advocated for me, and they just didn't accept that parent-teacher conference. They didn't accept
Yep.
what that administrator said. In fact, that conference and that parent-teacher conference ended with my mother pounding her fist on the desk, saying, "I refuse to allow you to condemn my daughter."
That's good.
So, but you're right.
Yeah.
When you're confronted with a challenge, especially at such an early age, you learn how to persevere because you don't have a choice.
No.
You really don't. And that carries over into adulthood, and that becomes an
It does.
incredible asset. It's a great skill.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, we carry things from our childhood into our adulthood,
Right.
and a lot of the things that we do now, we do it because of something that happened when we were a child. A lot of times it's a negative thing that happened.
Right.
We carry it with us, not knowing how that's affecting our life, and a lot of times not even knowing the cause of why we are the way we are. And as a coach, I see that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody has the one thing that happened as a child that shaped who they are, what they do. And for me, I realized one of my traits that I carried not that long ago. It was within the last couple of years I figured this out. So I've always been like very careful with books, like very gentle, or just, and like it's good to take care of your books, but like I was to the point where like it was like me carrying a baby around. Like I made sure like I didn't bump into anything, and I finally realized why that was, and that was back in the third grade. My music teacher refused to give me the class book because she didn't want me to wreck the book. That's what she told me.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is understandable because, my hands, they don't work the greatest, but it doesn't matter. Like, as a child, what that did to me at that young of an age,
Yeah.
it shaped my like whole life until recently.
Right.
And I just want to make it short. So when I figured that out, when I realized that, I was like, why do I care? Look, these are my books. I pay for them. If I wreck one, oh well, I can buy a new one.
Right.
Not a big deal. So I destroyed a book on purpose just to kind of get over that,
I like
So
that.
yeah, I was like, what, we gotta get rid of this. So yeah,
Right.
that's what I did. So sorry to go off topic. You just reminded me of that, so I just wanted to share that.
Oh gosh, no, I think that's absolutely on topic. it's so, I had to dig up those kinds of things in my life as well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was around self-esteem. I never believed in myself. I always believed that I was brain damaged because that's what they told me I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to figure out that I wasn't. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't what they told me I was.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope more people realize is you're not who other people think you are or say you are. You're yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and we tend to live within like the realm of what other people want us to do.
Absolutely.
And it's important to find yourself and then live the life that you want, not the life that other people want.
Or
So,
think that you should live.
yeah, or that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I spent a lot of time healing and doing trauma work.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned is exactly what you just described is, at some point the healing journey turns into a self-discovery journey. And you start to figure out who you really are. And that's exciting.
It is. It really is.
Really exciting. And it's wonderful.
It is. I experienced the same thing. I got started on my journey about 3 to 4 years ago now. And I'd say it was about 2 years ago I started to discover myself, who I really was, and more importantly, who I want to be.
Exactly.
And now I'm focused on who I want to be, not necessarily who I am. I can grow, I can evolve, I can develop more, new skills. So yeah, I like that.
I agree 100%. If we have to keep growing and learning and exploring, and that's the wonderful part of the journey.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. So I do want to talk a little bit about being dyslexic.
Sure.
What challenges you face and how you overcome them.
Sure. So, go ahead.
No, you can go.
Okay. So my biggest challenge was math and learning to read.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting too, talk about ideas or things being imposed on you. I was actually originally diagnosed as ambidextrous.
Mm-hmm.
And what that meant, or the belief system that was in place when I was 6, 7 years old, was that if you were ambidextrous, you didn't have a dominant eye.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't have a dominant eye, you couldn't learn to read because you couldn't track words across the page. So they actually held me back 2 years and said, she's just not ready to learn to read. So by the end of second grade, I mean, the very end, like June, school's almost over for the summer, they finally let me start to learn to read. Prior to that, I started to show signs of being left-handed. So they ended up saying, oh, well, she's left-handed. And what's really interesting is since I've been doing this personal growth work, is I have learned that actually my right eye is dominant, not my left eye. Some people would call that cross dominance. And I find that I'm using my right hand a lot more. So I'm wondering if I'm actually supposed to be right-handed. But to get back to your question, I learned that I could outwork everybody else. And it sounds like you understand that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just determined. I wasn't going to let them win, and I wasn't going to quit.
Yep.
And, I was angry. I was angry for a very long time and have done a lot of work with, therapists around that. So definitely moved past that now as an adult. But that anger also drove me. It was my secret sauce.
Yep. I had some of that too.
Yeah,
So yep.
it's a
Yep.
powerful driver.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I learned that I could work really, really hard and I could keep up.
Mhm.
And I had the unconditional support of my parents too. Um, they also got me tutors and other support services.
Mhm.
So I was able to kind of muddle through high school. Um,
Yep.
it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough, but
Mhm.
it was really the hard work, and I really had to sit down and think about my own thinking. I had
Mhm.
to do that as a child because I had to figure out how to work in a classroom that wasn't designed for me.
Mhm. Yep.
And by working hard, that was probably the strongest skill. Um, but, so much of elementary school then was memorizing your spelling words and memorizing your times tables.
Mhm.
So my rote memory, my short-term memory is non-existent, but my long-term memory is extraordinary.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a
Mhm.
trade-off.
Yeah.
So I found tricks to help me to memorize things.
Mhm.
And if I could repeat it enough times, I could commit it to long-term memory.
Mhm.
So those were some of the things that I did.
I I think that's kind of how I am too. Like I have to do something many times before I feel like I learn it. You
Yeah.
know. So yeah, it's a challenge for me. Like I can't read a book one time. I
Mm,
can read it once, and it's like I'll get a handful of things out of it, and then like I'll read it again, and I'll be reading, and like some of it's like I don't remember this at all,
yeah.
So like for me, I've realized, especially within the last few years, like I really gotta focus and whatever I'm learning, whether it's a book or a course or anything,
Hmm.
I gotta do it multiple times
Yeah.
before I actually like get it. And that's not even getting it down. That's just getting it to a point where I understand.
Right.
So
Right. Retaining and comprehending the
yep.
material. Yeah.
And you talked about learning your spelling, and oh man, that was something that I did not like in school because my dad would make me write each word 25 to 100 times
Mhm.
every night before
Yep.
I had a test.
Yep.
I would just have to sit and write the words.
Yep.
Thing it worked, so
Yep.
I'm thankful he did that. But man, I did not like doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody wants to work 3 times or 4 times harder than their peers.
Yeah.
It's you get you learn that it feels very unfair.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It
It,
does.
yeah, and it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It is.
very frustrating.
It is. But like at the time, yeah, it's very frustrating. But now that I look back on everything I've gone through,
Hmm.
and I realize that I'm a stronger person because of everything, I'm actually thankful for the way I am. I'm thankful that I have cerebral palsy, even though every day is a challenge. Almost everything I do is a challenge.
Hmm.
I'm thankful because it makes me who I am.
Yeah.
And without this, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't
Hmm.
be where I'm at. I
Hmm.
wouldn't have the giant community of people around me that love me and respect me.
Right.
Because if I didn't have this, who knows who I would be? You know.
Yeah. I agree with
So.
you. I wouldn't have done half the things I've done. I wouldn't have become the person I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree
Yeah.
with you 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are you working on now?
I've just completed a coaching course.
Oh, that's
So
exciting.
yeah, yeah. So I am coaching.
Awesome.
I do
Awesome.
have a regular job.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something I
Yep.
do on the side and for fun.
Yep.
I enjoy doing podcasts and speaking
Mm-hmm.
with people like you. You
Aren't they
know,
fun?
they are,
I love doing it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
Yep.
and the two groups that I'm really passionate about are people with learning disabilities or disabilities in general.
Mm-hmm.
To learn that you are so much more, and you know
Mm-hmm.
this. You're so much more than the label,
Yep.
and you can do so much more. And then the other one is advocating for women or
Mm-hmm.
anybody who is in an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it happens to men too.
Mm-hmm. It does.
And I've done some
Yep.
podcasts um, with some men who are speaking out about being married to a narcissistic wife
Mm-hmm.
and the toll that takes and the trauma. And, and I think that was
Yeah.
something I wasn't expecting. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
expecting to see that. That was a big surprise.
I actually recorded an episode with my best friend because he was in a narcissistic relationship, and we had a guest who was an expert in that field.
Oh, wow.
So I'll send you that episode because I think you'll enjoy. Well, not enjoy it, but you'll find a lot of value in that.
Yeah, yeah. No,
So,
I'd love to. I'd
but
love to see it. Yeah.
yeah, it was a tough episode,
Hmm.
but it's kind of one of those things that it had to be done to help more people,
Yeah,
you know. So,
yeah.
and that's why we do what we do. You know,
Exactly.
we
That's
do
why.
the hard things just so we can help somebody else.
Exactly. It's the
Hmm.
hero's journey.
Yep, it is.
And the
It is.
last part of the hero's journey is to take what you've learned back to your tribe.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and what you and I learn and what we've had to learn, it wasn't a choice for us. But what we've learned is valuable.
It is.
It is
Yep.
incredibly valuable.
Hmm.
And I feel a very strong sense of responsibility to share that information.
Same. Hmm.
Yeah, it matters.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. So I want to talk more about your book. So
Okay.
can you hold it up again and tell us all about it?
So it's available on Amazon,
Okay.
barnesandnoble.com, and it's also just come out on Audible.
Oh,
And
okay. I'll get it. I love Audible. I like to just listen when I drive. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And it occurred to me just after it came out that I had a friend who is also dyslexic, and she said, "Well, are you going to do an Audible book? Because I really struggle to read still." And this is, an adult woman. And
Yep.
I was like, oh my gosh, my demographic struggles to read. Of course I have to do the audiobook.
Yep. Yep.
so,
Yep.
so
That's awesome.
yeah, it just was released about 2 weeks ago. So it's brand new.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the arc of my story is really, it starts out in my childhood. Well, I'm going to back up.
Okay.
I actually start with my surrender point. After I had escaped from my ex-husband,
Mm-hmm.
or soon to be ex-husband at that time, and I was completely traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
I was so traumatized, I was driving through stop signs and red lights. I could barely function.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was in trouble. And I needed help. And I didn't know what to do, so I actually reached that surrender point where I just looked up at the sky and said, I'm all yours. I'm turning myself over because I don't know what else to do. And that's when things started to get better.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I started to heal, working with coaches and therapists. So that's that's the opening chapter, is that moment. And then I go back to my childhood and I talk about, the struggles in school, but I also talk about the happy side of my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Fishing with my dad. I grew up fishing with my dad, and he was an Army veteran, and he understood that the really important skills happen outside the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So he taught me how to navigate his boat. I used to
Mm-hmm.
stand on an upside-down bucket so I could reach the steering wheel.
Yep.
He taught me how to navigate. He taught me how to read the water, read the weather, be aware of your environment. And at 15, he sent me on Outward Bound, which I highly recommend at any age. The younger, the better, because it just shifts your whole trajectory of your life. It's an incredible experience. Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And 17, Dad asked me if I wanted to get certified to scuba dive. So, and then, we're talking, dating myself a little bit, 70s and 80s, we had to get special permission because I was under 18.
Okay. Yep.
So, yeah. And I also have a love of skiing, which is why I live here in Colorado. And I talk about some of my adventures skiing, some of my diving adventures. I've been heli skiing. I've had some incredible experiences while scuba diving. But even as I moved through these exciting adventures, I was still carrying around that trauma.
Yep.
And I still had low self-esteem. No matter what I did, it still felt like I was the stupid, broken, brain damaged person that they tried to program me to be. So I kind of lived with this dichotomy or this conflict of just being adventurous and really an extraordinary person, athletic, just really doing anything I put my mind to. But I still felt, I was so hurt inside. And it was when I got to that surrender point, and that's when the work started. And that's kind of the latter half of the book. And I really talk about what I did, working with coaches. I talk about specific, I actually have 2 chapters, one at the very end about a coach who I worked with, and then earlier in the book, earlier in the timeline, I worked with another coach who was from Vancouver, Canada, and how he took me through this realization process that I wasn't broken. But it was so interesting to move through that process. And he said to me, and I did write this. He said to me, I said, no, you don't understand. I can't do anything because I'm dyslexic. I'm broken. I have brain damaged. And he said to me, Ellen, that is the biggest bunch of BS I have ever heard in my life. And then he said something that changed my life. He said, you have been gaslighted into believing that.
Yep.
And I went, whoa, okay. And then it took some time to really process that. And that was when I began to shed that. And I realized that was part of my identity. And that was imposed on me. It was imposed on my identity. So I had to let that go. And I had to learn to move past that. But what was really interesting, and I do share this, is I actually went through a grieving process. I had to grieve that part of my identity.
Yep.
Didn't expect that to happen.
No. I've heard that in a similar situation. So, yep.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I did a lot of trauma work. A lot. Specifically EMDR. And anybody out there who, is listening or watching, if you've got unresolved trauma, please go and work on it.
Get a therapist.
Yeah.
I just recently started working with a therapist, and it's incredible.
It's a godsend.
I highly recommend it.
Yep. Yeah. And I did a lot of EMDR work, which is specifically for trauma. But I will say, if you're out there and looking for a therapist, be very careful who you choose.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Choose people I only work with people with excellent credentials.
Yeah.
And that's something that's very important to me, because there's a lot of charlatans out there. And they're more than happy to take your money.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And then I kind of moved from this healing phase, and I'm still healing today. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really come to an end, I don't think. I
No.
think this kind of blossoms is kind of a nice word.
Yeah, I like that thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I started working with some really interesting coaches. Again, people with great credentials.
Mm-hmm.
I joined Commander Mark Devine's training program.
Hmm.
Mark Devine is a retired Navy SEAL, and he has a training program for civilians.
Okay.
And it's not about jumping out of helicopters and planes and shooting guns. Well, it certainly can be, but that's not what it's about.
Yep.
And I was so fascinated with him and his coaches because I thought to myself, how do they do that? How do they get through that training and be that? They're the best in the world at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wanted to learn about, how they did it. And I learned it's not just what's up here, it's in their hearts too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's a big piece of it. And I've been part of Mark's training program since 2016, and that has been absolutely transformational.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I moved from being a survivor to a thriver.
Yep. I love that.
That's when everything started to change.
Yep.
And I still work with his program. I've done in-person events with him. He does corporate trainings. He's got online trainings, all different kinds of things. And then I worked with another coach. His name is Dennis Stoika, who I actually met because of the Unbeatable Mind program that Mark Devine does.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with him. Dennis just recently, about a year ago, retired from the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
He's was a supervisory FBI agent. And I did some personal coaching with him. And then I also did some self-defense training with him.
That's cool.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I flew from Colorado out to, he's in West Virginia, right on the West Virginia border, and spent a weekend of training with him, and I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm. I bet.
Yeah. He put me through 22 hours of training in 2 days.
Wow. Holy crap.
It was
a lot.
intense. It was
Yeah.
intense. But one of the reasons why I did that training was because, I had an abusive ex-husband floating around out there somewhere.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be prepared to defend myself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But here's something I've learned from that training and other trainings like that I have done,
Mm-hmm.
is it's not necessarily about the training or the skill that you're learning. It's about what happens to you when you're doing the training.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the confidence that you
Yep.
build. And that's where the transformation comes from.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about
Yep.
being able to, get away from somebody, or it's not about that. It's about what happens in here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so extraordinary.
Yep. I agree because, I truly believe that confidence is like everything. The more confident that I become, the happier I am, the more I do, and the more I get along with other people.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
So, yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing about your book. I hope everybody downloads it or buys it. I think that's awesome. And I would love to know. So my slogan is "Your abilities are infinite." What does that mean to you?
Well, I agree with you 100%. I think that we are so much more capable than we have any idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Marianne Williamson. She wrote a book, Return to Love. And one of the things, and I'm paraphrasing this, of course, and if I don't have it correct, Marianne, if you ever listen to this, I apologize. She talks about the idea that we are so much more capable than we think we are that it actually frightens us.
Mm, yeah.
So I think that's kind of what you're not saying it in the negative. But I think we're kind of afraid of our own
Yeah,
infinite abilities.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if we can move past that, that's when we can really take ourselves up to another level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, too, what has happened is, and I know you're going to be on the same page with this, is it becomes a life of service.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Really
I
move into
agree.
of service, self-mastery and service.
Mm-hmm.
And every time that I grow or you grow, I'm better able to serve.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
So
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
thank you.
And then, how can people reach out to you?
Sure. So I have a website, and it's nice and easy. It's ellenbusch.com. But I will say it's Busch, like the beer, not like the former president or presidents. That's a family joke, but when I say that, everybody gets it right.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram at ebush1500. And I'm on Facebook just under Ellen Busch. So I'm pretty easy to find. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was really great.
Thank you. It's been wonderful talking with you, and thank you for having me as a guest.
Of course. If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me here. The Nick Your Heart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors. So let's just get it out there by word of mouth, help more people. Alright, everyone. Remember, your abilities are infinite.